Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar for this evening. We're joined by Kinsey Livingston of Playlist, which is a parent company of ClassPass and MindBody. My name's Simon. I'm the General Manager of Unite Health. I'll give you a little bit of background on myself, and then I'll let Kinsey introduce herself and give a background on her career as well. So my background is in physiotherapy. I studied in New Zealand 14 years ago now. I came across to Melbourne and started a studio called Happy Melon Studios. Owned that for 10 years and recently sold that. So it's quite timely that we're having a conversation around the industry of Pilates, and it's the rise of independent studios, which is what we're going to be talking about. So Happy Melon had yoga, meditation, Pilates, fitness, clinical Pilates, and physio. The whole way through that whole journey, Pilates was sort of the strongest one for us. And it's just really amazing to see it sort of grow and grow. So really excited about tonight's chat with Kinsey. Thank you so much for joining us, Kinsey. If you don't mind just giving us a little bit of a background on yourself and Playlist and your experience, that would be great.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for having me, and it's great to see you again, Simon. Yes, I am the VP of Sales of the APAC region here at Playlist. And as Simon mentioned, we've got a few different brands. You're probably familiar with ClassPass, and you're probably familiar with MindBody. You may not be familiar with Booker, which is our booking software for spa salon businesses. And I've been at the company for about 7 years, so it's been an awesome run so far. And I've only been in Sydney for a little over a year. So historically, I was in the US. I was running our sales teams across North America, and moved out to Sydney because we clearly there's a lot going on here in the region, and we felt like we needed a bit of a stronger voice and an advocate in APAC, who knew the company really well. And so I moved out here and have been just meeting with customers, meeting with partners, and it's been a very exciting time for the fitness industry, as you all know, as you're in it. But so many brands are scaling really rapidly. They're starting to franchise a lot earlier than we've ever seen before. They're even starting to expand into other countries really quickly, and even into the US. So I think the US is very welcoming of Aussie brands coming out there. But it's been an awesome ride so far, and yeah, excited to be here today.
Welcome to this side of the world. It's great to have you here.
Thanks.
Also, just wanted to let everyone know that this is recorded. So if you miss anything or have to tune out early, we'll send through the recording. We also have one of our course experts in the background. So if you have any questions, please feel free to key away, and Caitlin will be in the background and she can answer those questions. So Kinsey, just wondering about what sort of drew you to the boutique fitness space and what continues to inspire you about it.
Yeah, well, I grew up playing sports, or I should say sport here in Australia. I grew up playing soccer and volleyball, so I've always kind of been an athlete, been in the gym, been working out. But it wasn't until really I was in my early 20s. I was working for another tech company early on in my career, and I moved to New York to work there. And I got really hooked on boutique fitness when I was living in New York. And it was kind of the very early stages of ClassPass. It had just launched on a kind of completely different business model, which was like $99 for unlimited classes, which was a great deal, and not a great business model for ClassPass or for the studio partners. So it's obviously changed a bit since then, but I did get hooked. And since then, I've gone through so many different waves of boutique fitness of what's my favorite in any given time. And I feel like I have like 2 year stints where I'll do, really obsessed with bar for 2 years. Then I was really obsessed with yoga. Then I was really obsessed with cycling. And now, believe it or not, I'm in my Pilates era. So I think moving to Australia has made that super accessible for me. Before this, I was living in Montana, and we didn't have a lot of Pilates going on in Missoula, Montana. And so it's been so fun getting to live in the northern beaches where I've got so many different studios right at my doorstep.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? During my journey at Happy Melon, we thought sort of Pilates may have hit its peak a little bit before COVID, um, but it's just booming, and it's the
Still
fast
booming.
still booming. It's still going. So it's again really exciting to be having this conversation with you. That's right on the ground of seeing all of this momentum, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down.
Definitely doesn't. I mean, we are seeing that the Pilates industry is just continuing to thrive, and both in Australia and globally. So on ClassPass specifically, we've actually seen reservations in APAC alone jump 56% year over year, which is crazy, right? Because like you said, a few years ago, I think we thought that that was the time, and now we're continuing to see this growth. And that's really just a little bit shy of the global growth rate on ClassPass, which is about 59% growth rate year over year. And so I think Australia is very much leading and has been part of the global Pilates boom. The other thing that's really interesting about Australia is that it's consistently demonstrated really strong engagement with Pilates, maintaining the largest share of ClassPass reservations for the past 3 consecutive years. So just to compare that to United States, for example, US only saw Pilates become the leading reservation genre in 2024. So for them, it's been, 1 year. And here in Australia, it's been 3 consecutive years. So the interesting thing is that, the number of venues on ClassPass, Pilates venues, continues to grow. However, in Q3 and Q4 of this year, 2025, we've seen a bit of a stabilization in terms of venue supply, which is really good. It's probably good not to have too many venues, and you want to make sure that demand is kind of keeping up with supply. So as of now, reservation volume continues to increase. So that's a good thing for everybody on this call that there's still a really strong demand for Pilates.
Absolutely. Yeah, I actually read an article the other day that it said that the Pilates and yoga industry is going to double by 2032. So it's again a really exciting time to be sort of in this and watching this growth and seeing lots of new boutique studios open again. Like it felt like it went through a bit of a boom 5 years ago and then sort of hit a plateau, but the demand's there, which is great.
Yeah.
You got any idea what's fueling that growth?
Oh gosh, so many things. I mean, I think to your point around yoga, there's obviously such an interest now in low impact modalities, right? Where people are really concerned about longevity. I mean, it's definitely like one of my passion. The reason that I'm so passionate about this industry is what we are all trying to do here is help people live longer, healthier lives, right? That's why probably everyone's in the industry in the first place and makes it really meaningful to be a part of. But more and more people are looking for low impact workouts and feels like injuries are on the rise and everyone's got, whether it's we're all getting older, there's an aging population here. That's really creating that demand for the low impact fitness formats. So Pilates super popular, yoga, and now swimming. Actually, we've seen swimming take off in terms of ClassPass reservations, where we have, gyms that are offering swim modalities, and even hotels who are putting their pools on ClassPass.
Absolutely.
The other things fueling the growth of Pilates are it's more of a holistic wellness experience. I think I don't need to tell Pilates instructors this, but it doesn't just target strength and cardio, right? It's targeting or incorporating breath work and body awareness and balance and more controlled movement. And right now, people are really interested in workouts that encompass that whole 360 body experience. A couple other drivers I think that are fueling the growth are, versatility. So
Yeah.
you've got people of all different ages and fitness levels who can participate, and it's really modifiable, right? The best instructors really know how to modify, and more men are now seeing the benefits. I think bro Pilates is a
You know,
term. Yeah, exactly. And of course, there's the cultural component too. Cultural drivers, social media, influencer culture. There's the visual appeal of beautiful studios and people wearing cute outfits to their Pilates classes, which definitely has turned a lot of people onto it. And then the last thing I would say is I think more recently there has been a reduced barrier to entry where reformers, I think, used to be pretty intimidating to people. And the more and more people are using it and they're seeing people use it on social media, and studios are offering more and more beginner classes, and their narrative on their marketing channels are that like anyone can do it. We have a class for you, no matter what your body type, no matter what your age or fitness level, like you're welcome here. I think that's really reduced the barrier to entry and made it more accessible.
Brilliant. And there's also we're feeling a shift towards mat again, which it died off for a while, but it's definitely coming back, and especially hot mat.
Oh gosh, hot mat. I swear, I'm like, I think this winter, at least around me, almost every single studio put in
Yeah,
hot panels, which
yeah.
at first I was actually really scared about because I have always kind of been turned off by hot yoga. But my favorite studio that I frequent ended up putting in the panels, and I was like, well, 6 a.m. is my class time, and now it's a hot mat class, so I guess I have to go. And
Do
now I love it.
it. Yeah, there's
I
something
just
in
had, yeah, I'm like, this is kind of brutal, but I love
it.
it.
There's a bit of cardio, there's a bit of everything, isn't there?
Yep.
And any ideas where you think it's going to be heading next? Obviously, there's lots of different varieties out there at the moment. There's the more traditional, but there's also the weight components with strip and cardio components with strong models. Any
Mhm.
ideas where it could be next and how to best prepare if you're an instructor?
Yeah, look, I think that I mean, it's not slowing down. So, like, where Pilates is headed is obviously still up and to the right, which is great. But I do think that that means that differentiation is going to become more and more important, right? As supply continues to grow, users are presented with more and more options across their geographies and potentially even in their postal code, right? There's 5 options, I think, in my postal code alone.
Yeah.
And so, how do you differentiate yourself? And obviously, like, you have to stay true to who you are as an instructor or as a studio owner or as a brand. But I do think it's a good idea to ask yourself every few months, how are we setting ourselves apart from the rest? I think there's also the economic pressure component that studios have to be thinking about right now, where there is a willingness to pay component that may be changing with just how expensive these cities are getting to live in and just rising costs everywhere. Obviously, for the studios as well, there are rising costs. And so I think there might be new pricing models that may need to come on, like pay-as-you-go models.
Yeah.
Also thinking about corporate wellness offerings and how you can partner with employers to make sure you're tapping into employee bases, which, if you're on ClassPass, you probably know that that already exists. ClassPass has corporate wellness programs. So if you are a studio on ClassPass, you've got access to that. And then I'm seeing a lot of studios leaning into more hybrid offerings. So it's not just in studio, but it's also a digital offering, which is so funny because that was like obviously what everyone had to do in COVID. And I think everyone or many people moved away from that after COVID because everyone was like, let me get off Zoom. And now it's starting to come back again, right? Studios are really trying to grip onto their members. If they can't make it into studio and they're traveling, how do I make sure that I'm still maintaining my members by offering something online? So I think we'll continue to see more kind of omni-channel engagement.
Yeah.
But again, the differentiation is so important because there's so much free stuff you can get on YouTube and elsewhere that the quality of your instructors really matters.
Absolutely. And speaking about instructors, because a number of our listeners tonight will be either have already trained or probably in the pipeline of potentially training. Anything you're seeing that studios are looking for when they're hiring instructors and how they might best position themselves?
Yes. So I think there's obviously the foundational component, right? Which is like certification and body movement knowledge, right? You gotta be knowledgeable, you gotta have your certification. But I think beyond that, one of the most important components is really excellent interpersonal skills, right? The ability to connect with members, the ability to connect with clients, how engaging and inclusive you are, really being a good full cultural fit with the studio and the community. And I think the other really important component that studios are looking for in their instructors is how coachable they are, right? And I think everyone, even if you've already been through instructor training, every studio is going to be different. So you want to come in with a growth mindset and you really want to convey that to the studio owner, right? That you have a continuous growth mindset. You really want to learn, you're really open to feedback. So making sure you convey that, but also what is your niche, right? What is your expertise? What makes you different as an instructor? What do you specialize in? What do you love teaching? And what does your portfolio look like? What additional, like either points of reference, can you share a quick demo video? Can you share a class outline? And really being proactive about what you're bringing to the studio before you're asked for it.
Totally. And from my experience as being a studio owner, like bringing people on, if I can give one piece of advice. So in our trainings, we do an industry component to it towards the end of the trainings to hopefully help people feel really ready to hit the workforce. And one of the biggest pieces of advice I give is go to the studios, like do some classes, be seen in that community. That would give people such a head start for us, especially just to show that sort of dedication, but also for them to get a feel for what the studio is like rather than just receiving a CV, making sure that it's the right fit for them and it's somewhere that they want to work, not just the other way around.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably where a lot of studios find their instructors, right? It's just
Yeah.
through their students, through the people that are coming in. I know, at least coming from Montana anyway, where we didn't have a huge population, that was always where the studios were pulling from, is like, who are the people who are most engaged in this class and bringing the best energy?
Absolutely. And we have a number of studio partnerships that we work with that during the training, if you come onto the training with us, you get a discount on services to those places. And that's sort
Um,
of like we want them to have exposure to our teacher trainers, but also the teacher trainers to or the students to have exposure to the studios that they might end up working at. So it's so important to sort of get your feet on the ground and see what studios you want to be at.
Absolutely.
So, what picks, or the next question is around studios and which ones seem to thrive and seem to not sometimes. Is there like distinct difference between what some studios do really well and potentially not?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I've obviously been to a large variety of studios after it's been at ClassPass for 7 years, had a ClassPass membership for 7 years, so I've been to quite a large variety. I won't talk too much about the ones that don't thrive. Let's focus more more on the ones that do thrive. But of course, I think what's most important is instructor quality, right? That's by far the most important factor in studios that thrive, and class programming and variety of programming.
Yeah.
Because I think clients don't want to come and do the same workout every single day, right? They want to know that, hey, if I come, 3 times a week or 4 times a week, that there's going to be different muscle groups that I'm working on. There's going to be different equipment that we're using, different playlists, different music, and a different vibe. And so I think that variety is so important. And I think some studios or some instructors even can get a little bit lazy sometimes and say like, oh, I didn't like do my prep for next week and I'm just gonna like reuse the class I used the week before. And clients notice that, right? And it makes them sometimes want to go elsewhere. So I do think that prep work is really important and really key. I think brand and studio culture is another huge component. However, you can have a great brand and great culture, but without strong instructors, I think it's hard to thrive. And so I do think these things really go together. But like just speaking from my own experience, the studio that I've gotten really hooked on here in the Northern Beaches has such an amazing atmosphere, right? Every instructor welcomes everybody that comes into the studio, right? You're not like an invisible face when you come in, no matter where you're coming from. You're putting your shoes on after class and the instructor is asking you like, what are you doing today? Like, what are your plans? How did you feel after that class? How are you doing? Like, it's such an engaging community. And then, everybody starts chatting all together like, oh, that was so tough. That one part of class was so hard. And so I think that really making sure that your community is strong, even if people are coming for the first time, because they see that and they want to be part of it. And then the other thing that I've really seen in studios that thrive is that they are very open to feedback. They're asking their customers questions. They're adjusting their timetable to meet their clients' needs. They're asking them what types of amenities are important to them in their studio. They're asking them if they have feedback on the merch, right? Like, what do you like about our shirts that we're selling? Or what do you want to see us selling in here that's branded? And I think that studios that really view feedback as a gift, because it absolutely is, are the ones who are really going to thrive and meet their clients' needs.
So you're telling the people that are listening, tell the studio owners what you think.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, I actually, yeah, the studio that I go to, I love their merch. I buy a lot of it. But I noticed like it didn't say like I'm like I'm new living in Australia and it doesn't say anywhere on it like the location or I was like it'd be so cool if this sweatshirt like said the city or even the country. Kind of like, and I also think that's good for marketing too, right? Someone's
Absolutely.
wearing that out somewhere and like they want to know where that location is.
Yep. No, and the studio owners listen, like we care so much and therefore we want to provide the best service. And to be honest, when I owned Happy Melon, I didn't take for granted like people spending their time at that studio. Like it's an hour or so out of their day, which is such valuable time when everyone's so busy. So you really do want to know if it's hitting the mark or not. And
Hmm.
and I that's really interesting about the sort of instructor thing. It's like you can have the prettiest brand and best marketing strategy, which will get people through the door. But the longevity of keeping membership there is through the quality of your instructors and their personal skills rather than how pretty the brand is.
Yep, absolutely. And does it feel good, right? Do you feel good after you leave? Like it can be so aesthetic, but you're like, did I get a good workout? Did I feel welcomed? And do I feel like I actually am like going to improve my body, mind, and soul after leaving this place 3 times a week?
And do you think most studios are doing that well?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I will say the majority, at least that I go to, are. But I
Yeah.
think there are a lot of studios that, what's hard about being a business owner is you are a passionate fitness person, usually, right? Like that's why you go into business. That's why you become an instructor. And so I think that sometimes what happens with businesses is that they go into they start a business because they love fitness, but then all of the business components, all the administration starts to take over. And it's not that they don't want to focus on hiring great instructors and like actually taking time to take their classes and give them feedback and make sure their instructors are getting better. I think they just get so overwhelmed with the burdens of running a business and how
Yep.
challenging it all is that stuff can get deprioritized. Like the stuff that's really going to drive the brand forward can get deprioritized. And so I think that making sure you have a really strong booking software, right? You've streamlined your operations in a way that allows you to make sure you're spending time on the floor in the studio with your instructors and with your customers is so important. So I don't necessarily think it comes from like laziness or lack of trying. I
Yep.
think it comes from like time constraint and bandwidth.
I can totally relate to that.
Yeah,
I think you're spot on. And yeah, as much as you can sort of automate these days, it's so important to take that component out of it, especially the marketing, like all the auto emails that you can send out through MindBody and is so valuable.
absolutely.
And I think the other one, and as you were saying before, is like that community component is so essential in the conversations before and after class. Like, do you think that is driven mainly by the studio owners, or do you think it's like the hiring of the right people?
I mean, I think that studio owners set the tone, right? So it's all in how, like, even from the very first time the instructor walks in for an interview, right? Or it's what is the vibe that the owner is setting? And so I do think it comes from the top, and leadership is so critical and so important in that. Like, what kind of vibe are we setting in the studio? I actually was at a brand conference this past week, and one of the franchise owners was talking about how he bought a new location of this franchise and it was just a very bad vibe and he like couldn't figure it out. Like he didn't even want to go into the space himself and everything just felt horrible. And he got advice from someone at HQ to talk to a feng shui master.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, 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 I'm not doing that. That's like so woo-woo. That's not. And she was like, just try it, It doesn't hurt to just have a call.
Yeah.
And so he did. And she like she was on the East Coast of Australia. He was in WA, and she like tapped into his studio from the phone call and started saying like all these things. And he was just like, my mind was blown.
Yep.
But he realized that like it wasn't just about him or the people or the instructors, it was also about like the space and the setup. And he said he took all her advice, and then within the next week, or like within 24 hours, he sold 10 memberships, and then within 24 hours, the brand, like the location felt completely different. And so I do think so much of it is like the owner really has to embody and understand like what vibe are people experiencing when they walk into my doors? And am I contributing to that in the best way? Am I making sure that I'm, adding to that? And then are the instructors and the clientele also adding to that? So I think it all stems from the owner. And then of course the owner is going to hire the right people.
Yep. And those people being able to sort of read the room and know when to have conversations. And because I remember when I was teaching, like every client is so individual, and some want to be really interactive and chat with you, but others just would prefer just go straight to their reformer and stay there. So I think that sort of interpersonal intelligence or ability to read each individual is really important as well.
Absolutely. And like I love being called out in class, like when I love being corrected, first of all, but I also love being called out, right? When someone's like actually says your name, like, oh, like, nice job, Kinsey, or whatever. But I've noticed that like a lot of studios don't do that, right? And of
Yeah.
course it's hard if you're like new there, but once you've been going for a while, like at that point, you know instructors pretty well, and I think those personal things go a long way.
And just back to the sort of practical bandwidth of owners, any like features that are underutilized that you think could help?
Oh gosh, so many. Yeah, so we like within MindBody, I think there are so many tools that are underutilized. But I think one of the most important tools, it's like an AI tool called Clients at Risk, which you may be familiar with, Simon, but it basically alerts you to clients that we think based on their behavior within the MindBody app and your branded app may be canceling their membership soon. And so it allows you to see the list of those people, but if you just look at the list, it doesn't really help, right? You have to do something with that list. And so I think, we deliver that list to business owners, but ultimately it's within their hands to actually go reach out to those people, check in with them, ask them how they're doing, tell them you miss them in class, like make sure they realize that they're being noticed and that you want them to come back. And even engage with them, right? That's a great opportunity to ask them for feedback. Like, hey, I've noticed you haven't been here for a while. Do you have any feedback for us? Re-engage them, get them bought in to the improvements that you want to make. There's also a tool within we call it the retention center, but basically you can send push notifications once someone hasn't opened your app for X number of days. So you're like, hey, this person hasn't opened my app for 14 days. I want to send them a notification. Now, that's not quite as personal, right, as actually reaching out to them. But if you don't have the bandwidth to reach out to everybody, you can at least send kind of automated push notifications. And I think that's a great tool that more people should be using.
Absolutely. No, I remember all these AI things were coming out just as we were in the process of letting it go. And I wish we'd fully utilize them because there was a big retention one, which was about I can't remember exactly what it was called, but it was in the AI field and it was just going to take so much grunt work out of like identifying new leads, I think it was,
Yeah.
and then putting them into like a pathway of how to convert. And that
Yeah.
used to be manual.
Yeah. The lead management tool. That's another big one. There's also one called Big Spenders. So, like, when people come in for the first time, we have various data points that might tell us, like, hey, this is going to be a long-term customer. They're going to buy an unlimited membership. And so, again, like reaching out to those people specifically and getting them engaged and not just leaving it to, you know, the pricing options to let them decide what they want.
And the calls.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other advice you'd give to people looking to open up studios?
Yeah, I think that marketplaces are really important, right? Like I obviously work at a marketplace, but I do think for growth and for visibility and for exposure for a new studio, being visible in marketplaces is critical because you can't just rely on someone walking past your space. You can't just rely on someone stumbling across you on Instagram. A marketplace is somewhere where people are going with an intention to spend money at a local business, right? They're going there, they're searching, they're ready to spend money, so you got to be in front of them. So the MindBody app is a marketplace, and you can promote yourself within there. ClassPass is a marketplace where you want to have visibility amongst all your competitors. And obviously, it's those two tools are really, really critical for growing. Again, I think in terms of scale, like once you start getting bigger or you even want to, add more modalities or add new offerings, making sure that you're working with a booking software that can support that ability to scale.
Yeah.
And obviously, MindBody we feel like is one of the best in the business because we've been around for so long and Pilates is really our bread and butter, but the booking software that you choose really needs to allow you to streamline your operations and do more within your studio versus being behind your computer all day. And then again, like standing out, right? Creating a warm, welcoming atmosphere, calling people by name. Your social presence matters, right? Ask yourself, how am I being perceived in the market by someone who's never been to my studio before? Because I think a lot of studios speak to their members on social media versus just speaking generally to the public and being known in your community, even if someone's never been to your studio before and people kind of know what you're all about. And yeah, I think like my biggest piece of advice really for being able to grow and scale is really staying true to yourself, knowing yourself, who you are, who your brand is, your identity. If you're in the midst of creating your own brand, really jotting down what are those things that are going to define your brand and then staying true to those things and letting those things really be your guiding principle of what your studio is going to be all about. However, on the contrary, making sure that you're open to evolving and that you have a growth mindset and that you're willing to try new things and that you're not afraid of change, but at the root of it, like just staying true to who you are.
Yeah, that's all great advice, and I can attest to the sort of exposure piece fully. Like we were with MindBody for 10 years and ClassPass for a number of years as well. And when we launched our recovery offerings, so we put a sauna and an ice tub in, and it was amazing how much exposure we got quickly on ClassPass especially. And just when you're introducing new products to your line, like having the eyes on something new is so valuable. So thank you, I guess, for getting the word out that we had new offerings. But I think it's really important. There's so many different elements, aren't there? There's sort of the practical elements of starting a business, but then it's like beyond that is making sure that the right people are seeing you, and I don't know the numbers that you've got on there, but it's thousands of businesses that and even more customers obviously that are seeing all these different studios and on a map as well is really nice. So thanks for helping our growth.
Absolutely. Thanks for being such a valued partner for all those years.
Of
Um,
course.
yeah, and I think we've probably advertised to the Unite Health member base, but we've got, a nice little special offer for anyone who wants to come over to MindBody via Unite Health, a great discount that you guys have been able to unlock for your members.
Yeah, thank you. No, all of our clients do get access to a number of different promotions, but that one with MindBody is great. So if any clients have not received that that have trained with us previously, we're happy to extend that to you if you're looking to start up a studio. So it's a good little head start.
Absolutely. Yeah, come give us a call. Happy to help.
Absolutely. And just lastly on I guess the instructor side of things, again, we really pride ourselves at Unite Health to have the best instructors coming out of our trainings. The APPI method, which is what we teach, has been around for 20 years now. It's got the physiotherapy backing, and we often hear studio owners sort of say that the level of instructors that come out of our trainings are really great, and which might be a little biased, but I really think it is the best training out there. I went through it as part of my onboarding, and I'd done a number of trainings previous to this. And it's just really thorough. You can enter it from any sort of point as well. If you haven't done any Pilates in your life, you can jump into it, or if you've done a little bit, it gives you a really good ground up sort of basis. So if you're thinking about it, please do chat to one of our course experts, and they'll be able to give you lots more information. And then on this studio ownership side of things, again, just recapping that we do cover that through the training as well. So if you're an aspiring young instructor but have a dream to open up a studio, you've got access to myself throughout the training to chat through how you potentially start a studio from scratch, what I would have done differently 10 years ago if I had that time again, and what I would have kept doing as well. So please know that we're here to support however we can. Just seeing some questions coming through as well, which we might be able to get to because we've got a few more
Gosh,
minutes.
you're making me want to become a Pilates instructor, Simon.
You know
I'm
what?
like, get a studio out in Sydney, and maybe I'll go through instructor training.
Actually, just launching our intensive up in New South Wales. So our intensive offering is our most popular one in Melbourne, and it's run over 14 days, and it's fantastic. The sort of connections that are built throughout it as well. And we've only run it in Melbourne to this point, but we've just launched our first one in March next year in Sydney.
Amazing.
It's really exciting, and the idea will be to run more and more of them. Um, so there'll be some space in the March one for now, but maybe not long.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. Yeah, we actually have Chloe on my team who she's the manager of the ClassPass sales team. She went through Unite Health as well for her instructor training, and she's fantastic. So I can attest to how good it is.
Kinsey, I've got a question here from Liam, who's asked, with the market so saturated, if you open a studio today, what would your non-negotiables and offering in your offering to stand out from the rest of the competition be?
Oh my gosh, that is such a hard question. My non-negotiables in my offering. Um, to stand out from the competition. I don't necessarily know that there would be non-negotiables, but I think to my point around, like, you got to figure out what's missing, right? So I think you have to find your location first, and then you got to figure out what's missing in the area. And you try to fill the gap with what's missing and differentiate yourself there. I think that the if the hybrid offering, I think a lot of studios are leaning on the hybrid offering because I think they feel like they have to do that to differentiate. But if everybody's doing a hybrid offering, then it's not no longer differentiated, right? So I do think you also need to pay attention to what does the density look like in your area? What are other studios offering? Is it a lot of other independent studios or is it franchises that kind of have a playbook already? And you know exactly what to expect from those. Although that's not even to say franchises are obviously always evolving too, right? The KXs of the world are always evolving. Core Plus, they're always adding more modalities. And so I think that it really does depend on where you're opening and what already exists there. And so I think if I were opening a studio today, first I would be trying to find a spot that isn't highly saturated. And I'm not competing with five other studios in the same postal code, but if I were, I think I'd make sure that I have a really strong brand. And of course, strong instructors, like I said, I think that would probably be the biggest non-negotiable is like do not compromise on instructor quality. Um, and if that means like maybe you got to pay instructors a little bit more to make sure that you're getting the top-notch instructors, that's probably where I would spend my money to make sure that the quality of instruction is just superb.
And is Melbourne the most highly dense studio-wise?
Melbourne?
Yeah. Is
Yes,
this?
it is. And I was just telling Simon before the webinar that Melbourne just surpassed Sydney in terms of reservation volume in ClassPass. So it's, yeah, it's growing rapidly. We're adding so much supply there. And it's a really amazing market for us.
Maybe a regional Melbourne or regional Victorian studio where it's not so dense could be a good place to try and tap into.
Yeah, I think we see a lot of that. Across all modalities too, right? Not just Pilates, but kind of on the outskirts. are really good options as well. You can't always run quite as many classes at those places though. So you got to be a little bit more choosy about, class times.
Yep. And on the practical side, if I'm giving some advice from my experience, trying to keep your costs low is a key one. Like you can see why studios are tucked around off high streets often. So just making sure that your financials are going to make sense at a not full capacity level. I think that's really important to make sure that your expectations are for the first 12 months at least, not needing to be at sort of 80% capacity because that's probably not realistic. It's what we found at Happy Melon, even when we're going really strongly, getting to 80% was about maximum capacity. There was always that sort of drop off of people that had booked in but didn't turn up. So just running the numbers at a slightly lower capacity would be a good point as well.
Yep.
Okay, I think we've got time for one more question. How would you best recommend a home studio to become a success? Having a setup in a plush backyard setup, what do you see the drawbacks being?
So I think home studios can be really, really successful. I actually have a friend who has her own yoga studio right up the street. And I mean, I think if the space is separate from the living space, that's really important, right? Like nobody wants to be in class and like seeing your family inside making dinner, right? They want to know that they have some privacy and they're not being watched. And so I think that's important. But I also think the same things go from a marketing component and a brand and culture component, right? Where you're conveying what your brand's about and what your community is about, and people are still getting that sense of community, even if it's in a slightly different place. I think some of the drawbacks, honestly, come from like parking situations sometimes. Like are there enough parking spots? But that obviously occurs kind of everywhere. But how accessible is it? Is it easy to get to? And is it safe? Does the neighborhood feel safe? All of those things that people would want to know when they're coming to any studio, I think still apply, if not even more so. But I think the privacy component is important.
Yep. And I think it is a nice place to start for a number of instructors. Like if they're teaching at studios but would like to start to build a bit of a brand, then having a reformer at home to sort of test the waters before you leap straight into owning a studio is quite a smart way around doing it as well.
Yeah, and I actually think a lot of clients are looking for that more intimate experience too.
Yep.
Like they want like a really, really small setting that feels highly personalized, highly specialized. And so I don't think there's a lack of demand for that type of offering.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's almost got us to time, Kinsey. But thank you so much for giving up your Wednesday evening and chatting to us. I think it's been a great conversation. I think there's lots of information and things for people to take away and think if you are looking to start up a studio or you just wanted a bit more information on the whole industry and where it's going. From all aspects, it feels like it's a really great time to be in Pilates. And yeah, we're here to support people on that teacher training journey. And obviously, you guys are there supporting on the other end of it. But yeah, just thank you so much for your time. I assume most people saw that there's a little giveaway for ClassPass credits as well, which we'll send out
There it is.
following that. So that's very generous. Thank you for
Yeah.
putting that little sweetener in there.
Can I put like one more little seed in everyone's heads?
You can.
So I will say, like, one thing that I cannot find is I have a 6-year-old daughter and she wants to come to Pilates with me all the time. And I cannot find like a single place. There's like mums and bubs classes, and then there's like some age limit classes where you have to be like 12 to go. But I cannot find a single place that I can like bring her. And I'm sure there's liability stuff and everything. But I think that would be so cool, like on a weekend morning, to be able to offer something where people can bring like a school-aged child
Yeah.
for a fun little exercise.
That's a great idea. We often had our clients turn up with their kids sometimes as well. And it's a there's a market for that for sure. So,
Yeah,
yep.
there is, because I think like, there's you want your kids to be able to see you do the thing that you love and see you in your element. But, my kids get to see my husband surf all the time. They never get to see me in my boutique fitness classes, and I would love to be able to like show them that experience. So,
And the younger they get into these sort of positive practices for their mind and body, the better. So
yeah,
it's a,
absolutely.
you never know, maybe someone listening to this chat will think.
Yeah, I know. If anyone's opening a studio in the Northern Beaches, that'd be great. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I think someone posted about the ClassPass offer. I believe there's a QR code that will be either attached to the webinar or sent out somewhere.
Yes, we will pop it into a follow-up email. So if anyone that hasn't, or if anyone that has signed up, we'll get an email after this, and that'll have the offer in it in there as well.
Okay.
And again, if you are a student or a pro-student of Unite Health, you get a discount off that Mind Body subscription as well if you're looking to start up your own studio. So reach out for that one as well. But otherwise, if you have any other questions, Caitlin will be in the background for a couple of minutes. Otherwise, please reach out to us and we look forward to seeing you again soon, Kinsey, I'm sure.
All right. Thanks all for having me. Have a good night.
Take care.